that came out this year, and I don't want to take up too much time because I want them to have the full floor. So, introducing Chinoye Chukwu, director of Till, Deadwyler, actress and actor John Thompson. I believe we have a clip to roll. Is that true? Okay, so it is true. If we can roll the clip for everybody to see. I can feel like the intensity and emotion from just watching that clip. Danielle, how did it feel to see those words bounce off of you just now?
I've seen the movie 1.75 times. That can tell you enough, right? And that 0.25 that I missed was the last time because we got pulled out to go do, some other spotlight thing. But it's difficult. It's difficult. Like it's hard. You're charged with the same kind of feeling. You know the thing. The sense memory comes back, and not just for myself. For the ongoing understanding of the history, for the fact that I maybe had to go through that, all those things just start to boil.
And I remember I learned about the Emmett Till case in college. I didn't really learn about it in high school, so I'm wondering, when was the first time you had heard about this story?
For me, it was elementary. I'm from Atlanta, so I'm richly, ingrained and rooted in the civil rights legacy. So it's just been a part of my life for the entirety of my life, for that matter. But I didn't come into a more richer, deeper understanding until we began to prepare for this endeavor. Digging into Mamie's memoir, which came out shortly after her own passing, and the other resources that we dug into, archival footage, imagery, the poetics of the understanding and beauty of the relationship between Mamie and Emmett, just so much stuff and this film now brings people into an intimacy of who they were, as opposed to just the binary black and white images that we've seen ubiquitously, right? So this gave me the visceral knowledge about their humanity.
And what about the two of you? I'm gonna ask you guys the same question. Like, where you were when you first learned about the...
Oh, I don't know where I was. I mean, I don't know the exact moment when I learned about it. I believe I've known since elementary as well, but it wasn't, I didn't really know much. It was just what happened to Emmett was like a footnote in a history book, and that was it. So I didn't really know the story. I think a lot of us don't know the story, and definitely don't know a lot about Mamie and her journey and her contributions, or even much about Emmett, who he was as a person, so yeah.
I would say the same. I came into understanding of the Emmett Till situation, I think, when I was in high school. But even then, it was fairly loose. It was just a name, a moniker. There was no depth behind it. I did not know about Mamie Till. I certainly didn't know about the character that I played in the movie. I didn't know about the constellation of all these other people that are in the movie that are part of his family and that were part of the political situation as well. So for me, similar to Danielle, I learned about Emmett Till in the process of working on the movie and all the resources that we were given.
And Danielle, I'm really curious to know, with such difficult material, how did you go about protecting yourself against some of the emotional sort of backfire that would come from a role like that and being a part of something like this? And for you, I'm wondering what your sort of conceptualization was to protect the audience as well.
So you're thinking about backfire from audience?
No, or for yourself.
Or just for myself,
Yeah.
I talked to my therapist a lot before, during, and after. I think we just created the space where community-wise, this wasn't a solitary endeavor, though so much of it is deeply, deeply private and difficult in that way. But everything about this film, everything about this production was rooted in community care in the same way that Mamie sought to expose a certain experience and to heal through incessantly telling the story and sharing with community and letting people know that you are going to grieve and mourn with me, not just for Emmett, but for all Black people who have been challenged in this way in the South, and nationally, globally for that matter, was that same thing for me. When I was on set, everybody was with me, and it wasn't about hiding away to maintain a certain feeling. It's we are all journeying through this together. The whole time. Chinoye was coming to me and checking on me. Sean Patrick Thomas really being my G. Everybody's mourning with me and joyful together at the same time. It wasn't just this downtrodden feeling. It was a full spectrum of joy and release and grief and coming full circle.
We had a therapist on set
Sure did.
every day, so she was a resource for cast and crew, at any point in time for us to process our feelings in real time. For myself as a filmmaker, the first part of my care for the story, for myself as a Black woman, for audiences, was in how the story was told.
Mm-hmm.
This is a film that is about Mamie Till Mobley.
Mm-hmm.
This is a film that is about a woman and her very specific emotional journey, point of view. This is a story about a mother and her love for her child, right? This is not a story about the physical violence inflicted on a Black body. And so I was very declarative about that from the very beginning, and then just kind of went from there. And because I knew that that was the story in which I wanted to tell. I knew that showing physical violence is not necessary, but I also knew that, my experience as a Black woman, and experience of a lot of people who are part of marginalized communities, our lives, our living is so much more than just the pain that is inherent to our existence on this earth, right? So when I thought of this film, I never saw it as just a quote-unquote trauma story, because that would do a disservice to the life, to the dignity, to the living that was Mamie, that was Emmett, that was Murley, that was Medgar. I think about my life as a Black woman, my joy, my community, and love exist alongside the inherent pain and sadness that can come along with being a Black woman in this world. And so that was how I approached this film. Let me also uplift the community and the love and the joy that exists in this story and these people's lives as well.
I have to say, having seen the film, I see all of that sort of come through, and I was so appreciative of being able to grasp this story while not having to really think about, at least personally for me, how I'm going to sit there and protect myself and dissociate and do all of these other things that sometimes happens when I watch these traumatic films or whatever. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask you, your character has to make a really, really tough decision. And when sort of reading the script and looking at it, how did you sort of connect with that sort of push and pull that the character has to deal with in there? It's not something that's easy, and some may look at it as unfair and others may sort of agree with it. But you personally, how did you sort of internalize that?
Well, I felt that the script gave my character, Moses Wright, a great deal of humanity. And if you look at it from a contemporary perspective, perhaps Mose should have made the choice of protecting Emmett as opposed to protecting his family. That was the choice. But if you look at it in the context of the time, and I think that's what the script gave me the ability to speak about the context of the time, where because of race hatred, because of systemic racism, it confines the Black mind, the Black spirit, and the Black body. There was only a few things that Mose could have done, and they would have all ended up in a situation that would have been terrible. The idea of making the choice of his family over Emmett wasn't necessarily a sacrifice. I always felt that Mose felt that maybe they'll just beat Emmett up. Beat him up. Come back. He'll be alive. We'll take him to the hospital. He'll be alive. He'll survive. But the idea of, I say to Mamie in the film, 2 white men came knocking on my door. Now, that could be an entirely benign statement. They could have been there to sell insurance. They could have been there to talk to me about my land. They could have been there to register me to vote. But when a black man says 2 white men came knocking on my door, it is a life and death situation. Now, within the context of the scene, I cannot be indignant about Mamie's loss, because she lost her son Bobo. Mamie is my niece. We are family. I said I would protect him. So I feel that the character of Mose had to live with this choice that he made that can be viewed by people in very different ways. And then the hope that, at least through the trial scene, when he gets to point out the murderers, that there is some redemption for him, for his character and some humanity, and in a way to risk his life by doing what he did. So it's very much a Sophie's choice, but the hope is that a contemporary audience would understand that, given the time that this situation happened.
And you said something really interesting about the black mind and sort of the confines of the time. And one of the details that you put in the film that really blew my mind was when they come to the house and get Emmett, and it's 2 black men who are sort of a part of this posse of sorts. Was that, like, when putting that in the script, was that sort of intentional or whatever? Because I feel like I should have known that there would be, people who were complicit in this behavior, or maybe not even complicit, maybe being forced to, I don't know. But it gave me something to think about, and it really sort of blew my head off.
So it is a historical fact that there were at least 3 black men who helped J.W. and Roy abduct Emmett and bring him to the places where he was killed. And they were people who worked for J.W. and Roy. And so they're also in a complicated situation as black field hands working for these 3 people. If they were to say no or to reject, what will that cost them, their families, and other black people in their communities? And so those are possible negotiations that at least some of those men probably were considering. But yeah, that's a very little known historical fact that really complicates things.
Wow. Everybody give a round of applause for the Thank you all so much. Thank you, Valerie.